Mr. Professor, hi.
Hi.
Professor Mueller, thank for your time, for your interview, for your hosting me here in Wien, University in Vienna. I'm very glad that you accepted my proposition to speak about current situation in Europe, in post-Soviet countries and in whole world generally. My first question concerns the consequences of the Russian aggression against Ukraine for Europe. So what what changed in Europe, in mentality, in politics, in history? What do you see as a historian? What happened in Europe?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. It's also an honor for making this interview with you and for reaching out to your audience. I would, as an answer, I would point to three different factors and levels. The first is on the short-term perspective, we see two or three things. One is that the relations between the European countries and Russia have undergone a severe crisis. This has also led to some clarification. In the past, on the Western side, there were many high expectations about the policy that Russia would conduct and about the future expectations for European-Russian relationship. And also for the Russian intentions vis-à-vis its neighborhood, vis-à-vis European states and the general standards of Russian politics. And now we see that these expectations have not been real. So there is a certain clarification in the Western assessment towards Russia. At the same time, we see that the Russian judgment about the Western states has turned very negative. We see that in Russian media, but also on the part of Russian political actors. Very often there are statements being made that this war is not only against Ukraine, but it's against the West in general, and it's against NATO and the European Union and the United States. So we see that there is some sort of a obostrzenie, there is an exacerbation on the part of the Western-Russian relationship, but at the same time we see that things have become very more clear than they used to be. The second factor is certainly that the situation for the Western states has also turned more difficult than it used to be in the past. Russia has used its wield of the export of natural gas for increasing the prices artificially. It also has withheld the delivery of gas and tried to use this for political reasons. And threats have been made, for instance, by the former president of Russia, Dmitry Medvedev, that gas is being used as a political weapon. And we see also that this has achieved certain consequences, but the consequences are not as high as many people feared. So this is the second factor, that there is pressure, but it is not that significant as some people feared. But it may also still increase. And the third factor, the third level, is that the unity of the Western coalition that is supporting Ukraine is higher than many people expected. Despite this war going on for such a long time, for more than a year now, we see still that there is the resolve on the part of the Western states to support Ukraine, to continue the support as long as it is necessary. This is the phrase that's very often being used by representatives of the United States, but also of Germany. For instance, we see what has changed in Germany in the political discourse about relationship toward Russia, and this is certainly a very important change too. So that this resolve and the unity on the part of the Western supporters of Ukraine is being maintained.
I can only confirm all what you have said because, for example, concerning the Germany, I made an interview with four famous German politicians like Stret Zimmermann. She's from Freie Demokraten, and she said me in the interview in Munich conference that it was a long evolution of the vision, even in her party, concerning the supply of weapons and other things. So as you mentioned before our interview, that the strength and the resistance of Ukrainians changed a lot. So my second question concerns the future of Europe, because several weeks ago I made an interview with president of Danube Institute from Budapest, Mr. John Sullivan, and he said that yes, there is support of Ukraine, but this support is different, and actually there are two camps inside European Union about the future of this war. One will promote some kind of negotiations, the other will keep on support the resistance until the territorial integrity will be restored, I mean Ukrainian territorial integrity. How to resolve this dilemma? Because our position of our president is clear, however our European allies, they, I think, don't have final vision of the situation.
I would very much confirm what the colleague has said, and I would stress that a lot depends upon how the war is developing and how the military successes by one side or the other side are influencing the political mood in Europe and in the West in general. So this is very important. That Ukrainian defense was so successful. It was so surprisingly and tremendously successful in defending its own country, certainly strengthened the position of those people in the West who said, we cannot give up on Ukraine, we have to support Ukraine. And this is something that is in democracies being negotiated, renegotiated within society, within the political sphere on a constant level. So this is I spoke before about the unity and resolve that is there on the Western side to support Ukraine, but this may certainly change within 6 months or in 12 months. It won't change to the entire opposite, but this is something that is certainly being renegotiated. So if you ask me, what consequences will this war have on Europe in the future, and whether it will contribute to the unity of Europe or it will contribute rather to the creation of different groups, then I have to repeat that this also depends upon the development and the outcome of the war. If this war will be successful, or in this war it will be successful to uphold the status of international law, to restore the territorial integrity of the country that has been attacked, then certainly it is going to contribute to the unity also of the European Union. It is going to contribute to, I would say, to the attractiveness of the Western model, the European model, the liberal model. If, on the other hand, it won't be possible to defend a country against an attack from outside, if it won't be possible to uphold international law and to restore territorial integrity, then I believe that it will be possible that the centrifugal forces on the Western side also will increase. Then we will have, or the Western states will have to deal with a much emboldened, perhaps, Russian Federation, emboldened by a successful aggression, and this certainly won't make it easier for the European states, not for those who are still dependent, for instance, on Russian gas, but also not for the other ones, because then I would expect that Russia would or may use all this aggression that it has used in the war against Ukraine before, also towards the European state. It need not to be militarily, needn't to be a military aggression, but can be in cyberspace, can be hybrid, can be political influence, making and all these kind of things through propaganda. So this won't make the relationship between the European states and the Russian Federation easier.
So the Russia will keep on pressure. You know that you mentioned a lot of things which are very, very important for the future of Ukraine and Europe. And my third question concerns actually the future role of Ukraine. You have already said a lot of factors which support the importance, which confirm the importance of my country in the future new security map. Henry Kissinger, during a long time, was a supporter of not integration of Ukraine into NATO. Now he changed his position. He said, no, now Ukraine should be in NATO. However, I see that inside NATO, there isn't any unity concerning the integration. Even in the European Union, if you speak about the integration of Ukraine into European Union. However, I see that this perspective is much more real. So you as a professional historian, I am as a PhD in social philosophy and philosophy and history, we understand the initial plan of Russia to conquer quickly, Blitzkrieg war, failed. Now they try to destroy the state. So nevertheless, how the war stopped, what is your estimation of the future role of importance, of Ukraine as a country in the future security and political and economical map of all European region?
As you know, and as our viewers know, Ukraine has received the candidate status for the European Union. This is not to say that within a year or two Ukraine will be a full-fledged member of the European Union yet. It's a formalization of the relationship. This relationship has grown through different formats, the partnerships and EU association, as it was formalized then from 2014 onward, and I believe that this track is going to be continued. And what can Ukraine contribute to its European partners? I believe Ukraine can contribute a lot. It is a highly productive agricultural state. It's a highly productive also industrial state. That's something that many people see right now, that Ukrainians are born engineers, so there is this tradition also that people know how to deal with all these technical appliances.
Ukrainians can.
They know how to do it. They can fix things. And also, what I believe, what's even more important is that Ukrainians have shown that they believe in European values. They believe in European values of liberal society, of democracy. There is the idea that Ukrainians want to participate in politics, and that's something very refreshing, I believe, from the Western European perspective. That's something that many citizens in Western Europe also didn't see perhaps, and that's something that people see now about Ukraine. Last but not least, Ukraine has shown a resolve to defend its own country and freedom, and that's also something that people in West can learn a lot from. When we look at opinion polls in Western European countries, whether citizens would actually be ready to defend their own country and their liberty and their freedom, then we see that only a small number of people would actually be ready to do that. And now we see at the same time that Ukrainians are keeping on the defense of their country against an opponent that was considered to be overwhelming in all, or almost all respects, the size of the country, the size of the army, and so on. And nevertheless, Ukrainians are keeping up defense, and that's certainly something that people in the West also can learn from.
Thank you. And my last question, I think the most complicated question, it concerns the future of Russia and the future of post-Soviet reality or system of countries. You know that when there was a coup attempt by Prigozhin, a lot of people thought that the situation would change. However, it did not change. You were in Russia, you wrote a lot of articles about post-Soviet countries, about Russia, you know the history of this country, and I think you know, you can try to figure out what the future of Russia as a state you see in the current situation, whether it can go to West or it will go to East. And the other thing, the future of the post-Soviet countries, Moldova, Georgia, Armenia, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan. Will Russia try to keep all these countries in their orbit to control their foreign policy and other things? What do you think about these very complicated questions, actually?
Yeah, the former British Prime Minister Winston Churchill once famously said, "Russia is a riddle wrapped in a mystery inside an enigma." So I wouldn't say that it's such a riddle, but the future is to all of us a very, very difficult field to forecast. So what can we say? I doubt that what was happening in the last month in Russia was a coup attempt. I believe it was rather a military mutiny, and so it did not touch upon the structure of power in Russia as much as many people perhaps expected. What the future of Russia will be depends to 90% upon the decisions that Russians are taking themselves, and whether they decide that this war should go on for some more month or forever, or whether they decide that this war should end better today than tomorrow. This certainly depends first and foremost upon the Russian president, but not only. I mean, Russia is a huge country, and it is certainly a country that has drifted toward a more authoritarian system over the past 2 decades. Yet at the same time, the Russian people also has a certain responsibility for the fate of their own country. This is not to underestimate the risk that people are taking when they voice their own political will, but it's the responsibility of the Russian people to decide the future of their country. I don't think that it is decisive whether Russia would orient itself more to the West or more focus it more on the East or on itself, perhaps. This is something that was at the center of Russian intellectual and political debates throughout the 19th century. We all know this fascinating debate about the Westerners and the Slavophiles in the 19th century, and we also see that certain characteristics of these discussions are still in in Russia, and they were there even in the Soviet Union, and we still that they still are there. I believe the central question is whether the Russian society wants to be or wants to have a state that is peaceful, that respects international law, or whether they don't care that much about what their state does in its external relation, and whether it's waging war against others. So there are these two different options, these two different scenarios for the future of Russia. One is that it will try to re-establish a good working relationship with the Western states. There were phases in the past that Russia was even allied. When we look at the two world wars, when Russia was even allied with major Western powers. And then there were also instances in the past that Russia turned toward itself. When we are talking about Russia turning toward itself, or turning perhaps even to the east, then we also have to take into account that the relationship between the most important eastern neighbor of Russia and Russia itself has shifted tremendously over the past 10 or 20 years. When we look at the balance of power between the Russian Federation and People's Republic of China, then of course we have to acknowledge that the power of China has grown, the economy has increased tenfold, and so certainly the relationship between Russia and China today is different than it used to be 20 years before. But to wrap it up, the decision where to orient itself, where to go, this is the Russian people's decision, and it need not affect the way how Russia is behaving on the international scene. And this is the second question, whether Russia wants to be a peaceful member of the international community or whether it wants to wage war of aggression. This is going to be the decisive question. It's not whether it wants to adopt more Western values or more think about its own traditions.
Thank you for these answers. I think that to some extent we will try to explain to our audience the complicated things of the political situation from the historical perspective. However, I think in the future we can make more interviews, and thanks you very much for your help, for your supporting Ukrainian scientists, Ukrainian as a country. And I think after the victory of Ukraine, the situation between Austria and Ukraine will be better. Thank you very much.
I thank you, and I also wish you all best for your work and for your country, and certainly also for our audience.
Thank you very much.